in 2012. I went back to Manitoba, southern Manitoba, where I was raised. I had an elderly mother who was there needing some care, so I found myself in a new old town again with a lot of time on my hands. And so I had the opportunity to take a pottery course, and I just fell in love with pottery immediately, could not get enough of it. It was just almost like an addictive process for me. I'm Kathryn Newsom, and I live in Nelson, British Columbia. I am a mental health nurse by profession, and I'm also a potter, and I specialize in barrel-fired pottery. There's just something about the tactile quality of pottery and the look of it that I loved. And in making it, I even more loved the unglazed clay. Like, I just loved working with it, and the throwing was a little challenge every time you throw a pot, and when you're a beginner, of course, it's never quite perfect, so I was just always wanting to go back and try again, see if I can get that pot a little higher, a little thinner walls, or the shape I really was going after. In terms of the barrel-fired pottery, I wanted to bring my pottery in some way up to my partner's cabin. I'd read a book on this type of pottery, and we had a barrel here to use, and so I started my first experiments with it up here. The first time we got a couple pieces that were really nice, and it was surprising. Like, I had no idea, really. And we spent the next 2 days staring at the pots, because this process just creates these sort of ethereal scenes, and you can imagine whatever they are, landscapes, galaxies, whatever. It was after that, I guess, I came up with the idea of calling them contemplation pots, because really it's something you could sit and look at these pots for a long time, and I find it a very relaxing activity. It may be a little obsessive, perhaps. With most of what I'm doing, I use a white-bodied clay, either porcelain or a white fine-grained stoneware. I'll throw them on a wheel, and then I set them aside to just dry for about a day, usually till it gets to the point where I can trim it, and I put it back on the wheel, and then I trim it. I use some tools to trim down the foot, and I smooth out the surface. Then it gets bisque-fired, and that turns it into a ceramic. I bisque-fired it at quite a low temperature compared to other forms of pottery, and that's because it leaves the pots more porous to accept more of the smoke in the barrel. Then when the time is right for firing, I have to make sure that there's no fire restrictions. Usually it's in the fall or the spring I'm firing, and I load my barrel with a combination of organic materials and some chemicals and a few odd items. I use sawdust, straw, seaweed, and corn husks, copper carbonate in a powdered form. I use some table salt, cobalt carbonate quite often, iron oxide, pine cones, banana peels, all sorts of bizarre things that leave some sort of a mark or a color on the pots. And what I'm going for is to try to get as varied of a palette of colors as I can achieve. I build a wood fire over top of the pots, and then I burn it from the top down. And I just let it burn until it's gone down to ash, and the pots are all lying at the bottom of the barrel. So the carbon or the other colors have gone into the pores of the pot, and it's like Christmas morning every time you take the pots out of the barrel. I mean, I almost feel that same excitement like when you're a kid and you can't get to sleep at night because you know you're going to wake up to find some presents under the tree. Well, for me, I can't wait to take them out of the barrel. I just have to see what has been created, because I can set up the same circumstances time and time again, and it's never, of course, ever exactly the same. And I'm just surprised all the time of what I get. But I almost always end up with some that are really, really beautiful. So that's the most exciting part of the process. I make these pots because I enjoy doing it, not because I need more pottery in my house or I need the money. This is not where I'm making my money, but it's just so much fun to do. And it's very rewarding, and especially as my craft develops and I can see my pots are getting better and I'm getting better results and more reliable results. Yeah, that's really satisfying to me.